Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my show. Tonight we're going to talk about how the Trump administration and congressional Democrats are deadlocked, locking horns at an impasse on passing a stopgap bill that funds or keeps the federal government open for services and goods, right? And so now, with 5 days, 5 working days, or something like that, somewhere around there, September 30th at 11:59 will be the deadline to get something signed, to go into what's called a continuing resolution to keep the government open temporarily, so that real reconciliation, real debate can happen on the remaining parts of this legislation that we hope has all of Trump's promises that he made to America during the 2024 campaign. We already got the big, beautiful Bill Act signed on July 4th of 2025 this year. It included reductions in Medicaid and Medicare to illegal aliens. According to reports that were reporting at the time during the summer, it was an estimated that 1.4 million illegal immigrants were on the Medicaid, Medicare rolls and receiving benefits. Not just healthcare benefits, but they were receiving benefits like SNAP and stuff like that. Now, it may have been mostly state money that's been used to fund these illegal aliens who should be deported and not sucking up tax dollars. Right? U.S. American tax dollars go into someone who broke into our country illegally. If I broke into Costa Rica illegally, I would be put under the jail, and let alone receiving benefits. Right? So, without saying too much, what I'll do is I'll play a couple of clips. I'll react to those clips. And then I am going to show you the real reason why congressional Democrats are clawing at their request to restore $1 trillion worth of Medicaid, Medicare, and other social program benefits that were going to illegal aliens. I will be right back after the break.
Federal workers could be at risk of more than furloughs if the government shuts down in a few days. Emily Wilkins joins us now with the latest from DC and we'll talk at the end, Emily, but the as expected rhetoric. If you need 60 votes in the Senate, right? Is that what you need?
You need 60 votes in the Senate, Joe, and you got to map the math. There are only 53 Republicans. Some of them have to be Democrats. And look, at this,
how are you going to say? How are they going to say? So you get all the Republicans. The government shuts down because you don't get to 60.
She walked right into that one. I have to say that was very crafty on the part of the old guy.
And he said that these unnecessary firings will either be overturned in the court or the administration will end up hiring the workers back. And Joe, as we were just discussing, again, you need at least 17 with this news last night. What we want is...
So you get all you need with the latest from DC and we'll talk at the end.
Yeah, I had to play that back, folks.
As expected rhetoric. If you need 60 votes in the Senate, right? Is that what you need?
You need 60 votes in the Senate, Joe, and you got to map the math. There are only 53 Republicans. Some of them have to be Democrats. And look, at this,
how are you going to say? How are they going to say? So you get all the Republicans. If the government shuts down because you don't get to 60, with a straight face, how do Democrats say the Republicans are shutting down the government?
Well, if you're a Democrat, and we've listened to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, and what they've kind of said is, look, what we want is for some healthcare provision to be in there.
I know.
They haven't been super specific on exactly what it needs to be.
All right, so the healthcare provisions that the congressional Democrats want in this stopgap bill that'll keep the government open, I think, until like November, December, January, something like that. There are always blocks of periods of continuing resolution bills, stopgap bills. But we are going to get into what the congressional Democrats, as far as the healthcare provisions, we're going to get into that. We're going to dive deep into that, because what you have to understand is that the host of this CNBC interview, he was correct in baiting her to fall in his trap, which was, well, if all the Republicans in the Senate vote for the bill, and there are only 53 Republicans in the U.S. Senate, then they're going to need at least seven Democrats to get to 60 to pass this bill, continue a resolution, to keep the government open temporarily, avoiding a mass furloughs, avoiding possible mass firings of non-essential personnel, especially personnel that work for agencies that are not in line with the Trump administration policies. So there's a lot at stake here, and I know that firsthand. And so what I'm saying is that we need Democrats to work with us to keep the government open and continue negotiations on other parts of the bill to get this fiscal year 2026 fully funded. And so the host's point to her was, how can Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries get out on the airwaves, on television, on the radio, on podcasts, X, social media platforms, and say that if we end up shutting down the government on October 1st, it's going to be the Republicans' fault? No. We need at least 7 Democrats to get to 60 in the Senate, 60 votes in the Senate to pass the CR. So if no Democrats are willing to work with the Republicans to pass the stopgap bill, then wouldn't you say it's the Democrats' fault for having the government shut down? And we're going to get to the reason why they're deadlocked and no negotiations taking place so far. They've stopped talking. Both sides have stopped talking. They're not even in D.C. right now. They come back to D.C. on Monday. I don't know why they had off. Maybe it was Rosh Hashanah or whatever, the Jewish holidays. But we'll see. We'll see.
But they're hoping, they want to get that in there, and they do point out that there are these tax credits for the Affordable Care Act that are expiring. That does seem something that does have Republican support. And look, I mean, this is part of what we're seeing with this news last night. This Trump administration going ahead, escalating the stakes of a federal shutdown, putting pressure on Democrats, saying that they're going to implement a large-scale federal layoff if Democrats don't vote with Republicans to keep the government open. Now, the Office of Management and Budget, they're the one who sent out this memo, and they told agencies that they should consider firing employees who would have otherwise merely been temporarily furloughed in a shutdown. Now, the last time there was a full government shutdown in 2013, about 850,000 employees were furloughed. That's according to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. The guidance from OMB that CNBC got says the layoffs should not apply to agencies and programs that were funded in the Trump mega bill. So think things like work.
Look, I just got to point something out here, and you know, we're imperfect, right? We're imperfect, but if you're on a financial news channel that's syndicated throughout the United States. Your financial news channel and you can't get the number 850,000 right? Huh? It's supposed to be 3 zeros after the comma. Or if you don't want a comma and 3 zeros, then you put 850 and then you put a capital K behind it. And most people who are good math people or financial people will understand what that means. Or if you're from other parts of town, you put 850 and then G, 850 G's. Some people across America will understand what that means. But to have 850,00, that's, I mean, unless I'm missing something.
850,000 employees were furloughed. That's according to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. The guidance from OMB that CNBC got says the layoffs should not apply to agencies and programs that were funded in the Trump mega bill. So think things like border security, the military, or those who have programs in line with the president's priorities. But the memo also makes clear that no mass layoffs are going to take place as long as Democrats vote to keep the government open. The agency actually ended their memo saying that they remain hopeful that Democrats in Congress will not trigger a shutdown and the steps outlined above will not be necessary. But at this point, the pressure campaign doesn't seem to be working. Top Senate Republican Chuck Schumer, he remains unswayed. In a statement, he called the move an attempt at intimidation, and he said that these unnecessary firings will either be overturned in the court or the administration will end up hiring the workers back. And Joe, as we were just discussing, again, you need at least 7 Democrats. You might even need a few more, depending on what the votes we saw last time. They're out of Congress right now. They're off of Capitol Hill. They're coming back on Monday. That's when we expect to see the next vote. And this is kind of the back and forth that we're seeing right now. Democrats pushing healthcare and Republicans pushing back.
We all have government shutdown fatigue in the brinkmanship that both sides play. A couple of years ago, when the Republicans were out of power and the Democrats were going to do it, they're saying, if it shuts down, and the Freedom Caucus, they're saying we want these kind of cuts and we're not going to do it until, and they say, so it's not really us. We want cuts, and if you don't do it,
this time feels a little different.
Yeah, but how it's
this time
it's
feels
a Schumer
different.
shutdown because they're the minority party. They can't dictate what
I'm not
goes
arguing
into
with
it.
you. What I'm saying is this time feels different because
Well,
instead
might
of
do it.
compromise, I think
Because
they
this
might
time
actually
it's
go ahead with
Democrats.
this. And the Democrats have been the ones who have been so unhappy about the number of layoffs in the federal
But you
government.
can't
when DOGE
say
came
do
through.
what we want.
Right.
As a minority party, or else it's your fault the government
Agree.
shuts down.
My guess is it
Schumer
looks like a
shutdown.
big game of chicken at this point. Emily, I don't know what you think, but I would be surprised to see the Democrats go ahead of
My quick opinion right now, what I feel is that if the government shuts down, then Trump needs to put money where his mouth is. If the White House OMB published a letter explaining that if a shutdown occurs, that they're not going to just furlough or lay off workers from agencies that don't align with Trump administration policies. They're going to fire them, right? So if you still got a DEI office or agency in the federal government, you're probably going to be targeted, right? If you have agencies that are openly defiant against Trump's administration policies, it'll take a little bit to weed you out and find you, but you're probably on a chopping block as well. Folks in the Department of Veteran Affairs are also affected by this. To what degree, I don't know. But the congressional Democrats and the Democratic Party are not the ones in power. So they cannot dictate what the Trump administration policy should be in certain areas of legislation. And so they either get on board or be blamed for the government shutdown, one, and then mass firings from agencies that are not aligned with the Trump administration policies.
With this new
hope
threat
they
that's
do.
out there.
Do it.
Because you can say the courts will overturn it, that this will happen, but this has been one of their keys that they've been arguing with the Trump administration since January over, is the idea that these government workers are necessary, that these government functions are necessary, and you can't do it without them. If they do go ahead with this, and those workers are furloughed, and there's a number of months or even longer before they're brought back, that undermines a huge point that the Democrats have been trying to make all along with this.
Absolutely, Becky. And you remember back in March, this is part of the reason that Schumer gave for voting to continue that government funding when we were looking at the shutdown just a few months ago. And so now to have this come up, but Schumer now seems to believe, at least based on what he said in the last 12 hours, that he's kind of trying to call their bluff, trying to say, hey, you guys have tried to fire folks, you've had to bring them back. You understand at this point that you can't just let a bunch of people go, and trying to call them on that. I think though, at this point, you also have to remember the
pawns is not using people as pawns is not a popular game that's going to play well, particularly I think on the Democrat side.
This is a sideshow. It's a sideshow. If the government gets shut down, how are the Democrats going to say this is the Republicans shutting the government down because they're not doing what we want? They don't have the right.
And if you shut the government down, how do you get out of a shutdown? What do Republicans possibly give Democrats at that point?
That's right, but they can't dictate what the Republicans need to do with health care or any of these things because they're a minority party. They don't have the presidency. They don't have the House. They don't have the Senate. So if it gets shut down,
it goes back to the Obama. It goes back to the Obama administration. Elections have consequences. Those were the comments that he made.
That guy is stuck on saying Schumer shutdown, which I believe it will be a Schumer shutdown. Now, one thing I will say is that while negotiations are currently stalled, but they were happening in the background in recent past. I'm hopeful for that. There's negotiations. There are people talking. Okay, I mean, it may not be in public, it may not be in the halls of Congress, but two groups of people are having dinner right now, negotiating. Okay, I mean, I just find that hard to believe that we got very well paid congressional Democrats and Republicans that work in DC. They probably got a second apartment, a third house, a third wife up the street. I don't know, but somebody's talking. And my point is that when we look at the people who are going to be affected by this the most, right? It's going to be people who rely on goods and services coming from the federal government, national state parks and tourist attractions and medical health type services, and to some degree will be affected. You just have to realize that this Chuck Schumer shutdown is something he is very keen on hopping on that. But here's what congressional Democrats are demanding from the congressional Republicans before they sign on a stopgap bill that'll keep the government open. The Democrats, congressional Democrats, want to restore Medicaid funding. Restore Medicaid funding. They want to extend enhanced American care. What is that? The ACA, American Care Act, American Health Care Act, that was passed by President Obama, right? And But here's what that means, though. Here's what that means. Restore Medicaid funding. Here's what this means. I typed in a question with AI. Were illegal immigrants affected by, the Affordable Care Act? That's what ACA means. ACA, Affordable Care Act, right? Good that my brain is working somewhat, right? I typed in the question, were illegal aliens affected by the health care cuts in the one big beautiful bill? And the answer came back, yes. But they used the undocumented immigrants were affected. I like to say illegal aliens because that's what it says in our federal law. That's what it says in our statutes, right? Why are we playing around with words? They're illegal aliens, right? They're not domestic. They're not organic to this country. They broke in illegally. Illegal aliens. So the answer was yes. Undocumented immigrants were affected, though the impact is indirect and often overstated in political rhetoric. I'll give them that. Here's a breakdown. So here's the meat and potatoes, guys. Federal eligibility was already limited, but the bill tightened the loopholes. It prevented congressional Democrats and Democrats across the United States from using loopholes to do what? Give social program funding like food stamps and Medicaid, Medicare, and other subsidies to illegal aliens. It's American tax dollars that are used on a person and their family that broke into this country, which makes them illegal, ineligible to receive it. So they closed the loopholes, right? They closing the loopholes. They have to. They can only access federally funded emergency Medicaid for life-threatening conditions like labor and delivery. So you can't be sitting on your ass watching Telemundo while you getting free benefits on taxpayer dollars, on the taxpayer's back, right? Then they gonna say something dumb like, but their category represents less than 1% of the total Medicaid spending. So what? It's still taxpayers who get up to go to work every day. They gotta pay their taxes, pay their bills, and then some of their money is going to the illegal alien? No, I don't care if it's less than 1% of the spending. See, they like to throw that shit in there. Nah. Right? So what we got? The one big beautiful bill reinforces and expands verification requirements for citizenship, immigration status across Medicaid, Children's Health Insurance Program, and Affordable Care Act plans. Right? So they really scrutinizing these applications. Like, are you an illegal alien? Huh? Let me know. Because if you are, then your application is denied as it should be. Right? The One Big Beautiful Bill Act has cut or is in the process of cutting 1.4 million people. Now it says people here. Right? It says people here, but nah, that's not what we talking about. That's not what we talking about. We talking about 1.4 illegal aliens. 1.4 million illegal aliens have been cut or in the process of being cut from receiving all these benefits on the taxpayer dime. Huh? Right? This is what Hakeem Jeffries wants in the stopgap bill. This is what Chuck Schumer wants back. They want to reinstate all this. They want to use emotion on the American people, banking on them not being smart enough to do their own research and be like, nah, I ain't voting for this. Nah. Shut the government down if they want this shit in there. Why should our taxpayer money go to helping illegal aliens when we should be deporting them anyway? What are we talking about? This is ridiculous, man. Impact on undocumented people, illegal aliens, right? Impact. Minimal direct loss of federal benefits, but it heightens scrutiny and could delay or deny emergency care reimbursements to hospitals, indirectly reducing access in underserved areas for illegal immigrants, for illegal aliens, not U.S. citizens. And if you are in a food desert, if you are in a crime-ridden area, if you are in a place or area that don't have good grocery stores, if you are a person that doesn't live by a good hospital, if you are the type of person that wants better schooling for your kids, then what you need to do is save your money and move the fuck out of your neighborhood and go to a better one. Okay? That's what needs to happen. Instead of sitting on your ass with your hand out and doing all this other kind of stuff, make some shit happen. Right? Pray, right? For wisdom and guidance and all that, and then go out and take some action. Right? Go out. If you want to lose weight, go take some action. You lose some weight. Eat less, move around more. Simple. Okay? Simple. Right? But getting back to this. I only have a few minutes left. Right? I think I hit the meat and potatoes of this. But these guys are trying to act like the Trump administration is taking Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP benefits and all that from Americans who qualify for it. No. That's not what's happening. What's happening is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act is basically tightening the loopholes on illegal aliens want to cheat the system and lie on their application and get these benefits, right? They are heavily scrutinizing these applications now, and 1.4 million illegal aliens either have already been removed from these benefit rolls, receiving benefits, or they're in the process of being removed. And that is $1 trillion in savings after removing 1.4 million illegal aliens from receiving these benefits that the American taxpayer pays for. Okay, so keep in mind, that's what Hakeem Jeffries wants in his damn bill. That's what Chuck Schumer wants in his damn bill. Elizabeth Warren, AOC, all these nut jobs. That's what they want. They want the taxpayer to keep paying for illegal alien benefits. I'll see you on the next one, man. Thanks for joining me.